each time you sin, you're filling your channel, and it's getting harder for water to flow through your channel.
Just being able to spend that time in silence in what we would say is emptiness, it is hugely beneficial to the soul.
It is just as simple as entering into his presence. And welcome back, folks, to episode number 58 of the Lost Sheep podcast. I'm going to switch this out. There we go. To a little zoom out action here as we begin this episode on a wonderful Monday in the month of June, the 23rd of June to be specific. And I don't know about y'all, but it is absolutely scorching up here in Kentucky. We are in the 90s. Evan, that might just be a normal Monday for you, but I know for us, it is just a sweat fest up here in Kentucky. How about you, kid?
I would hate to say that wasn't a regular, but between it being 95 degrees and raining at all hours of the day, it's been wonderful. I keep wanting to get the bike out, but I can't have like a 4-day stretch where it's dry enough to have like all of the roads completely dry and stuff. So yeah, it's just hot, man. And the whole summer's gonna be hot, and it's just getting hotter.
Yeah, I was walking to my car after work today, and I was thinking to myself about how, we still have to go back to Alabama, and I was like, wow, I really have 4 more months minimum of this heat. We're just getting started out here. But Cole, you are still in Alabama. We still have to go back there in a couple months. What is the weather down there like in Alabama?
Just the same as Texas, pretty much. Texas is a little bit hotter and more humid, but it's about solid like 95. It's pretty dang hot. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, so we are dealing with that. However, we're still able to come inside and record a podcast, enjoy the AC, get a break from all of that heat. And for me, I know as a camp counselor, I don't really have an option to come inside. We're always outside during the day. Cole, you're a farmer, so I expect you to be outside most of the time. Evan, do you spend a lot of your waking hours of the Texas summer inside?
Yeah, 100%. I think the only option is to
Cole,
there we go for the people watching us. A little sneak peek. No, the only option honestly is to be inside. And I do most of my work. I mean, I work remotely, so I'm right here all day in front of my computer. But no, I mean, there comes a point in the summer, we call it like, it's just like kind of this like indomitable almost. It's impossible to be outside. And I was going to say, like when you're walking to your car and you're going across the concrete or something, you can literally like feel the hair on your skin like singeing. And you're just like, dang, this is awful. Like this stinks. So yeah, we're getting to about that point in the summer where it's just, you got to stay inside under the AC. You're laying under the fan like a snow angel, like cooling down. It's wonderful and terrible at the same time, all at the same time. So
we are in the heart of summer just like you guys are. And why not kick us off with a wonderful quote? Cole Bissett, I know you are. I'm trying to stall as best as I can for you over there, partner. Are you ready to go to introduce our quote for the week?
I am ready. Sorry, guys, I am doing the graphic at the
Cole,
same time.
did you hang another, like, is there another, did you hang another screen up here? What do you keep looking away at?
Another screen. Oh, I have a monitor up here.
Oh,
actually,
okay.
that I've been using.
Okay.
I just have not used it for the podcast yet. But yeah, so I have that up top ready to go, so I don't have to like change back and forth from our camera. Really quickly though, I will introduce the quote for you guys. So this is from Pope Benedict XVI, living legend. Well, not living anymore, but no, he's still alive, right?
I'm
Pope Benedict
pretty
still alive, right? Anybody?
Pope Benedict
Nope,
is dead in 2022.
3 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay, crazy.
What a
Anyways,
start to the pod.
he says, learn how to reflect. Your heart is a window open to the infinite. One more time. Learn how to reflect. Your heart is a window open to the infinite. I'm going to let you guys shoot. And real quick, we are going to be using this layout because it makes it easier for Opus. So our clips are going to look a little better. So y'all get up close view of our faces. So enjoy that.
Cole, when I look at this quote and you introduce it, my challenge for this podcast for myself is to not go on another mindfulness rant because I feel like it's just sitting right there. But I'm actually going to choose not to do that. I'm going to pull it. Where did it go? Can we pull it up again here? Oh, that's the right button. Okay. So when we first look at this quote, I love the open to the infinite part and how, well, God is infinite and we have just such a huge ocean of things that we can learn about and dive into about him. And it's just so cool to think about the incredible graces, the incredible love that we can learn from the Lord. And it's not about we have to do some insane reading. We don't have to go and search and dive through all of these different books from past years. Now, that's great and all, excuse me, and we can learn a lot from doing those things, but there's no greater way to see into the Lord than either through the Bible or just through prayer. You can really just enter into an incredible world, the world of the God of the universe through prayer, and it is just as simple as entering into his presence, which is just so awesome and why this quote is so amazing. Because when you think about reflecting, you think about looking back on different things that's going on in your life. But another way to do it is to just sit there and see what kind of pops in your head and see what comes up and what the Lord kind of puts on your heart. And to be able to decipher and kind of weed your way through all of that, to see what the Lord's trying to tell you, to see how he's working through that is so cool. And, excuse me. And I know one way that the Lord likes to speak to a good amount of us, especially through Cole, would be through music. Like I know Cole and I can relate to speaking through music. And my mom actually was telling me, I think a couple of days ago, this one little part of a song, just this little lyric that came into her head that she thought, you guys talked about God winks, I believe, 2 weeks ago. And God winks are great through music and just seeing little lyrics pop up. And it's so cool how you can't remember a lot of the other songs. Sometimes you can't even remember the title of the song, but this little lyric sticks with you. And so it's just so cool to see how you enter into prayer, enter into a reflection state, and see what the Lord does with it and how he does all the opening of the window and all the infiniteness that just comes through.
Yeah, I think just initial thoughts, one of the coolest things. So I'm not sure if I've shared this with y'all before, but Caroline and I are in the midst of a Marian consecration. So we did our first one last year, and then we are renewing it this year. And it's a super cool opportunity just to grow in faith and grow in relationship as well, honestly. But one of the coolest things, we're doing 33 Days to Morning Glory. I'm sure some of our listeners are familiar with it. Nazario, I've seen you pick it up. And so I think one of the coolest things about this particular Marian consecration is that it goes through 4 saints in the first 4 weeks. And week 2, which we're on currently, is Saint Maximilian Kolbe. And he's one of these guys that's very mystic, very intelligent, but also very down to earth, and understood that the people who would be reading his stuff were, just as lost as the people he came into contact with every day. And so, a lot of what he writes and a lot of what he talks about is stuff that is not in this crazy, like a high, heady, mystical. I mean, it is, right? He connects with a lot of mysteries of the church, but it's not this like designed to confuse and belittle you almost. And so, I've spent some time just reflecting on his writings, but, I think one of the cool things, and Nazario, you kind of touched on this, is being able to really sit with just time, whether it's in front of a monstrance, whether it's in front of in front of the church, like at mass, or just an empty church, right? Just being able to spend that time in silence in what we would say is emptiness, it is hugely beneficial to the soul, right, is hugely beneficial to the mind. And it's in those tiny moments when God speaks, those tiny moments of silence, those tiny moments of contemplation. And the final thing I want to touch on kind of this introductory thought is, coming to know Christ is coming to know yourself, right? Made in the image and likeness of Christ. And so, as we slowly become to know Christ and know God, we can understand ourselves and in our creation and his love for us.
Yeah, I love that both you guys are going at this with just the way you're going. I love Maximilian Coley too. That's a fire shout out right there. But I actually I'm gonna go ahead and throw out the definition. It's in the chat for you guys if y'all want to refer to that. But it's reflect. There's two definitions I want to use. The first one is to block and redirect, and then the second one is to give back or exhibit something or someone as an image, likeness, or outline. First of all, I just thought the reason I included that second one is I think it's funny because it's very that's very catechetical, if that makes sense. Straight from the catechism right there. God created us in his own image and likeness right there. It's a reflection of him. So when we think of this, we are thinking about how we are reflecting God onto the rest of the world, which is why our heart is a window to the infinite. It's a window of God directing his reflection onto the rest of the world, and that's exactly what we're called to do. And so I want to actually bring a quote. It's from B.J. Neblett, and it's, "We are the sum total of our experiences," which is exactly what Pope Benedict is talking about, right? When he's saying learn how to reflect, he's not saying he could be saying learning how to reflect in prayer. He could be saying learn how to reflect in your heart. But when I read this, I'm thinking he's saying learn how to reflect what's around you. Learn how to reflect what God has bestowed on the world that you can take in and give to somebody else, right? When we think of reflection, right, light is shining onto a mirror. And the mirror, in this one, when I'm looking at the definition, is blocking or redirecting it. It's not coming straight back at you. That light isn't coming straight back at you, right? And so if you're reflecting God onto the mirror of yourself, that light is shining onto another person. You're redirecting it towards somebody else, therefore giving that light and that God's goodness and God's love to somebody else. So when we think of your heart as a window to the infinite, as a mirror to the infinite, it's the mirror of God for other people. And so that's what I love when we think of the quote, "We are sum total of our experiences." The more God you take in, the more prayer you use in your life, the more you dive into your faith, the more you can reflect onto other people. And so that's just my first initial thought with this.
Yeah, cool.
Do y'all have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and as you're going along and kind of talking about the redirection aspect of the reflection, which I didn't think about, which I'm glad you brought it up. I think about what Christopher West and St. Pope John Paul II talks about with the definition of chastity. And so in our minds, we get this idea of chastity that can go a lot of different ways, whether it's been distorted from our culture as like what only the weird people do. They're the ones that stay chaste, or it's like you're looking for the right word here. You're forcing yourself to do this thing, or you're shutting down all of these desires, right? You're putting them all down into this, just pushing them down, suppressing them. That's what we can think of that's what people think of a good amount when they think of chastity, when they allow, the brokenness side of humanity to get into there and kind of distort what chastity really is. And what Christopher West and JP2 would say goes right along with what you're saying, Cole, is the definition of chastity would be to a redirection of our desires. And the Catholic Church, this comes from My Catholic Life, Chapter 6. Chastity is a virtue that is essential to all people. Chastity means that a person surrenders his or her sexual passions to the will and design of God. And the best part of it, it means that one's sexual desires are ordered to the good of another and expressed properly within each relationship. And so I just think this plays off of you really well, Cole, because although chastity can be really focused in on your relationships with either your spouse or a girlfriend, it kind of involves your entire life. Especially for us guys that have such high testosterone and hormones, those feelings come up a lot. And if we're not able to redirect those, then a lot of painful, bad things could happen, not just outwardly, but internally, very much so. Whether it's we continually suppress them or we continually allow them to just corrupt our mind. But as Pope Benedict talks about, we must reflect, because chastity and our sexual desires give us a beautiful window into the infinite and a beautiful image of what we are supposed to be as human beings and what we are supposed to be as an image of God, and what it means to be able to let go and surrender ourselves, our desires, for the good of other people. And we see this most definitely in the passion of Jesus Christ, and just the ability to surrender absolutely everything for what? For the will of God and for the love of humanity. This was God's plan, and the plan as well for us as human beings is to be chaste and to just keep this relation going. And Jesus surrendered himself completely to God's will, just like we are able to do. But it is not something that makes us downtrodden. It's not something that makes us just have this awful life, as some may make it seem. It redeems us completely. And just like with Jesus surrendering to the Father's will, it redeemed the entire world. And us surrendering to God is not something that's going to make our life terrible. It is going to absolutely redeem our lives and make it to be what is supposed to be, and create ourselves, well, not create ourselves, recreate ourselves as to what we are supposed to be, which is a gift. So that's just playing off of you a little bit, Cole. I like where you went with that. I was not expecting to go down that road.
Yeah, I like the chastity take. I'm taking some notes here in our little chat as you're speaking. I love the angle that you're going at this, especially since we're all dudes. This is a pretty pivotal thing for us to like understand. The first quote I want to say is actually from the Preparation for the Sacrament of Marriage. That's the Pontifical Council for the Family. This is: chastity isn't a rejection of love, but a condition for real love, enabling self-giving in marriage. So again, perfectly straight to your point. Yes, we need to learn how to reflect that love in a way that is pure, in a way that involves learning our own self-mastery. We have to master ourselves through chastity and through love. And so, yeah, I love the angle you're taking with that. Evan, you got anything over there?
Yeah, 1-star quarterback hits his receiver 20 times out of luck. I think, we can kind of look at it, and this is a weird metaphor, but bear with me. If you don't ever learn, if you don't ever practice real something, right? Whether it's kicking a soccer ball, you never even practice, scoring a goal. You never even practice, throwing downfield to a receiver. Then you're going to stink at it. Like, you're going to be really bad at it, right? And so in our lives, if we don't practice loving truly and loving correctly, we're going to be all over the place. We're going to be really bad at it, right? We're going to be scoring in our opponent's net. We're going to be, kicking out of bounds. We're going to be completely confused, no idea what's going on, and we're not even the master of ourselves. And it's only with that kind of form of practice that we can begin to really actually truly like use that as we intend, and not use, but you know what I mean, how we can perform that love as we intend. The other thing I will say is kind of, that's where the reflection keys in, right? And I always talk about this, but like analyzing where you are right now and what life looks like, what your routine looks like, what your interaction with others looks like.
Did you guys just lag, or was that just me?
No, I did a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
fan
hopefully nothing
up by
happened.
the
We'll
chance?
check that in the editing. But sorry, Evan, continue.
No. But I mean, you have to reflect on what the state of your life is right now. But the more thing I'm interested in is that this quote provides an interesting conundrum, because it kind of implies that you make an active decision in all this, and you kind of take that for granted, right? So, quote, learn how to reflect. Your heart is a window open to the infinite. This kind of reminds me of the joke, there are 3 steps to putting an elephant in the fridge, right? What are the 3 steps? Open the door is the first step that you don't think about. And so in this quote, right, open the window is the first step that is kind of understood to occur before all of this, right? And reflection is great. Internal conversation is great. Internal prayer is fantastic. All these things are good, but they require that first step of opening the window in order to take place. And so, I think that's kind of that first step that we have to focus on, especially if you're not used to doing that, if you're not used to that internal reflection, or even if you're not used to that reflection that we've talked about, where you're reflecting that love of Christ, right? Unless the window's open, nothing can get in. And so, opening that window is the first step to kind of viewing the infinite. I want to pose a question. And this is normally
I've got some more too questions after you're done with your question.
This is normally a cold thing, but infinite provides an interesting thing here for me, because God, I think it's oftentimes like this, in the Bible, he's referred to as like this great or huge or massive or infinite. And so it's always been an interesting thing to me, whether like y'all read that as a presence of being. People talk about like meeting great people, and they talk about how larger than life they are, or if it's like, man, I feel like God's really big, But I always think about like Moses when he goes up to the mountain, and just this huge presence that he feels. And it's always a very interesting thing to reflect on and to kind of pray around, that being that infinite presence, that massive presence that they always mention in the Gospels. But anyway, just a point for y'all to ponder.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. Cole, are you going to go into that more?
I was actually a little bit. I was going to touch on infinite, and I actually was going to pose the question, what do you think this word is referring to? What is the heart a window towards? What's that?
Say that again for me, please.
Yeah, repeat the question.
What's inside the window, right? If the heart is the window, the open window, then what's inside the window? I have an answer, but I want to pose the question to you guys first.
Well, I don't think I think you're thinking about this wrong. So like how I think about it is like, if the heart's a window, then that means like everything is on the outside.
I was as well. I'm not saying you're wrong, Cole, but the way that I think about it is that like myself, my interior, my soul and humanity is the inside of this window, and the heart opens it up to, as Evan said, everything else outside.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to get to, right? If our heart is a window, and the heart is the house for the soul, right? If that's what we're saying, right? And so that's what I was referring to. And in the end, our souls are the ones being reunited with God in heaven, and our souls that's where everything. That's where the juice is. It's where all the stuff is that we have, our morals, our concepts, our love that God has given us. It's in our soul. And so I think if you view the heart as a window, and the cool thing is, and I didn't even think about this, is I love how Pope Benedict uses window and not mirror in this. And I'm kind of going back on myself a little bit here. But I think the cool thing about a window is, it does reflect. It does reflect a little bit, but it doesn't reflect 100%, right? You are still, when you are taking in God's love for you, you are letting, and I think I actually ChatGPT'd this for fun, but 4 to 8% of the light is reflected back to the surface, and the rest goes through. So 96% when you are praying and you are allowing God to enter your heart is flowing through the window and is into your heart. And that other 4 to 6% is going out to the rest of the world. And that's why it's important that you use that 4 to 6% as much as possible. And for you scientific nerds, the reason it does that is because of the refractive index between the air and the glass. So if you want to learn more about that, go look it up. But yeah, and so I think that's just another cool thing, because the heart is the house of the soul. Like it just comes back to that in the end. And so if we learn how to reflect, we are learning how to grow our soul. We're learning how to grow our heart, and in turn, we're learning how to get to heaven.
Yeah, and going back on God being infinite and being this grand, incredible, just everything, right? I said right. Look at that. But
Looky there.
if only 4%, as Cole talks about, comes through or reflects back out to the window, out to the world, as you said, Cole, and 96 goes to ourselves, is that percentage still not infinitely great if it is God?
Yes.
And so when we think about that, and I forget what it's called that we talk about a lot with our focus meetings, Evan, if you can help maybe think of the word, is not the most important, but in our work as disciples and through discipleship, if we ourselves don't grow and if we ourselves are lost, then the mission has failed. And we ourselves, first and foremost, need to make sure that we, in our relationship with God, is important. And they use a reference for this certain type of water machine that I cannot remember the name. But basically, the water comes into this machine, but the water stays in that certain area, so it stays in myself, but I'm able to pass water on as well while not losing my own water. Evan, you look like you have a funny face. What's it called?
Yeah, so I actually gave a search talk on this. So it's kind of the channel versus the reservoir metaphor. And so the idea is that when we pray, when we grow and we have these outpouring of graces and mercies into our life, the idea is to shape our lives into a reservoir that fills and then pours out into others, right? You take a reservoir has a dam attached, let's say, for instance, and that dam pours out into a river, and it sustains the communities downstream. But the idea isn't to be a channel, right, where the water is just going to run straight through. You're not going to attain any of that grace for yourself. You're just pouring out into others. And it's not to be just an ocean where you just fill and fill and fill without pouring into others. And I think this is, I was kind of going to touch onto this as well, right? Like, yes, like infinite graces are poured into others when we pray. And also, and I'm going to touch on this later, but it's food for the journey, right? Like we talk about the Eucharist being food for the journey. We talk about, prayer being our sustaining force behind our life. And so, that mercy that we fill our lives with and then can pour into others, it's that, even if it is 4%, that's a fantastic mercy to pour into others. But that's that channel reservoir lake metaphor. Yeah, it's a good one.
I actually want to keep adding on to this metaphor because it's so fun. I love metaphors. I think they make it very relatable and easy. I'm going to do the heart one, and then I'm going to relate it to the reservoir one just for fun. But think of it like this way too. If again, I love window, I love channel, I love all of these things because most stuff will perfectly flow through this. Like in a channel, most of the water is going to perfectly flow through it except for little obstructions in the dirt. But think about it this way. Each time you sin, you're throwing dirt at the window and decreasing the reflection and decreasing how much goes through. And each time you sin, you're filling your channel. And it's getting harder for water to flow through your channel. And so eventually you completely block it. And you're not actually letting your soul receive anything, right? And so going back to our confession episode last week, confession it shows that Jesus is the window wiper. He's washing your window for you. He's keeping it clean so that way God's love can see your soul and you can allow God to enter your heart. And then he's emptying your channel and he is letting your channel flow smooth into that reservoir. So I just wanted to add a little bit onto that just to, want to be a little more fun with it. So
And I also like the responsibility that you and the accountability that you gave to us human beings in that, Cole, and that God is not the one that closes off the window or the reservoir. As we talked about him being infinite, he always is pouring out those infinite graces, but we can still make the choice to clog it up where it can't come through. We have to, as we talked about many, many times, we have to open ourselves to allow those graces to be able to come through the window. And that is why our choices, our actions are so vital and important, and why there are both mortal and venial sins. And when you are committing venial sins, you are just slowly throwing little bits of dirt on there. But then when you take and make one of those mortal sins, you are throwing a big old clump onto that window. I mean, think about the things that happen when you do that. You're not able to receive the Eucharist anymore. How much of an infinite grace are you removing from your life with that? And you're making life so much more difficult for yourself, because you yourself are making the decision to cut yourself off from God. And that is why I think we should transition into our practical prayer practice. The practical prayer practice of the week. And so our practical prayer practice of this week, ladies and gentlemen, to help ourselves to be able to be cleansed, which we do not do ourselves, but we have to place ourselves in the confessional to be able to be cleansed. So our practical prayer practice of the week, I know we talked about it a lot last week, but we're bringing it right on back, and that is confession. If you have met the three of us, you know we are big confession fans, and it is one step in the Catholic faith that needs to 100% be revived as much as possible. I know at St. Francis down at Alabama, it has been an incredible grace to see how many people engage in confession. Then you come back home, you go to different parishes, you see how it fluctuates in the amount of people that go from church and parish to parish. So as much as the Eucharistic revival is an absolutely amazing thing, the revival of confession, is revival even the word? I'm not sure, but a just encouragement of people to go towards confession, especially the fact that us as Catholics should not be receiving the Eucharist if we have committed a mortal sin and not confessed it, or if I believe you have not gone to confession within a year.
Within a year is a precept of the church. So.
Yeah. So just run back to confession once again, as we talk about over and over and over again, and allow God to cleanse the window, to wipe it clean, so that all his graces may pour forth.
Yeah, and confession is just one of those things that, like we kind of touched on a lot last week, feels really weird and awkward and bad at the beginning and before it, right? But you just get out of it and you feel so much better. A funny story last week, I went to confession and I get nervous. It's just, you get those confession nerves. And there was a little slip of like a little plastic thing up there that had like the act of contrition on it, but it was a different one than I was used to saying. So like the priest says, "Oh, say your act of contrition," and I start saying the one I know, and I open my eyes and I like find where I'm at in the little slip of paper, and I'm like, this is completely different. And I just stop talking. I'm like, uh-oh, and he's like, "It's okay. Just start over." And I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. It looks like this is the worst. But yeah, just get in the confessional. And then Cole, after your talks, I kind of have a practical prayer practice of the year. Just like a challenge. But Cole, talk to us about confession. Just yap it away.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't talk like too little about it. There's just so much. There's so much rewards. There's so many benefits. It's a renewal of your soul. You're allowing yourself to be with God in almost his fullness, except for the fact that we aren't in heaven. But you're allowing yourself to fully engage with him through confession. And again, I love to say it. It's a Catholic's therapist. It's really easy. It helps you. It helps your mind. It helps your heart. It helps your soul. All of these things. It cleanses for you. There's so many benefits, so many rewards. You will encounter different priests throughout your lifetime with different ways to give advice, different challenges, different penances. Some of the best penances I've ever had have been from different priests all over America. There's active penances in the form
Did
of
you go in Italy,
fasting.
Cole?
I didn't go with an Italian priest, but I did go in Italy. I did
Man.
go there. He's in Rome. He works for the Vatican, so I would say that's a pretty big W. He wasn't Italian, but yeah. No,
You just said across the Americas. I was like, could he across the
Well,
world?
I mean, he lives in Rome, so
Hmm.
yeah, sure. Yeah. So while I was in Italy, I did get a chance to go to confession, and it was amazing. Got some wonderful advice, and it's just the the opportunities are endless. Go to confession, like it's such a beautiful thing, and it's such a beautiful sacrament for all of us.
Yeah, and if
would
if
say.
you're afraid, if you're scared, it's very understandable. There are a lot of people that have been this way. I remember would have been a month and a half ago maybe. We were over at Alex Cruchot's house. It was the final time he really had like his final thing before Cole's phone's gone. The final
Phone
thing
call.
before I was leaving and he was eventually going to graduate. And Alex talked about how I believe either during his freshman or sophomore year he knew he needed to go back to confession, but he was scared about it. And if you think that, if you're a scared person, you're like this little scrawny person, you're like, I'm just a little and scared. Well, this is a bodybuilder, professional, like weightlifter out here. What do you think he is? 6'5", 250 or something like that?
6'3", 200 pounds. You said.
Yeah. So if you think that you're little and tiny and you're scared and you're this feeble little guy, don't worry about that, because we are all scared in our own way. It is okay to be afraid. Even power lifters can be afraid of confession. But to add a little bit of why you should go more often if you're trying to work on that, is that the priest can come to know you in a deeper way. And the more that you come, the more they get to know you, the better they can do with helping you. The better they can either do with their penances. What in the world did I just say? The better they can do with their penance. Wow, I cannot say that right now. Somebody say it for me.
Penances.
Penances. Thank you very much. That was really embarrassing. But the priest can help you with that better. They can give advice. I know people have spiritual directors. I don't know exactly how that works, but it has to do a good amount with confession. And so
they direct you spiritually?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
obviously, sir.
Yeah.
But how do they become the
You just,
title of spiritual director?
You just ask.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Well, this is how you can grow your relationship with your priest so that they can become your full spiritual director. And if you think you don't need a spiritual director, Christopher West has a spiritual director. And if you know anything about him, and he still has a spiritual director, I think we all can say that we need one. So, yeah.
One of the many benefits of a spiritual director, especially if it's a priest you get a confession with often, is they get a chance to walk with you during your struggles and not after your struggles, if that makes sense. They actually get to help you work through it and effectively overcome it. I don't have a spiritual director, and I actually have been thinking about it recently I should definitely try to get one. So yeah, it's just a simple thing. You just ask, and like I don't really know if they would say no. I've never heard of that before, but speaking of confession and the importance of confession, at any time in our life we can, our passing is not something of our own knowledge. We don't know what will happen to us, and Evan, do you want to?
I have a quick ad just before
Okay,
we move segments.
Yeah.
So as y'all went to mass, so this past Sunday was Corpus Christi, which is the body and blood of Jesus. A cool holiday, but my kind of practical prayer practice that I want just to, of the year or whatever, permanent challenge. Our priest in his homily this weekend gently reminded everyone that the point of Mass and the point of our Sunday obligation is not the Eucharist. And I thought this was a really cool homily, because most of the time they're like, on Corpus Christi, they're like, the Eucharist, the Eucharist, the Eucharist. And it can get a little bit rote. But he kind of made the point of, the Eucharist is the food for the journey, right? And so an important part of Mass is the bit of Mass after the Eucharist, and that the liturgy of the Eucharist doesn't end until the end of Mass. Like when the deacon says, go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life, or whatever appropriate ending. And so, that's kind of my challenge for this year is don't leave Mass early. I know a lot of people, like, even at Alabama, I see it, and it kind of is a little bit disheartening of just the people who receive communion and then leave, right? You'll look at the group of people before communion, and you'll look at the group of people after communion, and you're like, man, this is a really big difference in amount of people. And it was just a really cool reminder that we live our lives as Catholics here in Mass, in sacramentally, but also we live our life here in everyday life, and we live our life, as regular people. And so, just a reminder to live that life there and here, both in Mass and in your regular life. But I just thought it was a really cool homily. I wanted to share a really good wake up call for a good portion of the population. So anyway, shoot, sorry, Cole. I know you were introing,
you're good. No, you're good. I was gonna say, again, confession. It's important at any point in our life. Our passing is not something of our own knowledge. It's not something we are aware of. And so, speaking of people in bad health or maybe at death's door randomly, our shepherd of the week kind of has to do with that. So we're gonna go ahead and do our transition.
The shepherd of the week.
There we go. All right, cool. How do I bang? Got it. All right. So our shepherd of the week. This is a very beautiful story I heard the other day. Actually, hold up. I'm gonna remove that. Can I remove that? Uh-oh. What did I do? Bang.
I hope you're not trying.
All right, cool.
No, we can't. You can't do this.
I can't?
No.
No, not actually.
It's copyright. We'll get our video removed. Yeah, can't do
play
that.
the audio though, right?
No, that'll also get our audio removed because the award show owns it.
Dang.
Cole is attempting to set the demise for the destruction of the Lost Sheep podcast.
Just explain it though. Just explain it though.
Yeah. So, if you guys would like to look it up, just look up Jamie Foxx guitar story. So this happened at the BET Awards recently. Jamie Foxx came up on stage. He received an award, and the first thing he did was thank his daughter and thank God. And here's why. Recently, he was undergoing a lot of pretty terrible sickness, and his vitals were really rough. And so the doctors were outside of his room trying to discuss what to do. And his daughter came in and started playing guitar. And Jamie Foxx says he could hear God through the music. He felt the Lord through the music of his daughter, through the miracle that his daughter gave him. And the doctors and nurses came back in the room and were like, "Hi, we are not sure what he needs." And she said, "I know exactly what he needs." And she kept playing. And eventually his vitals dropped for just a second, and they went right back to normal. And it brought him to tears. And at the end of his speech, he said, "God is good." And everyone says all the time. And then he says all the time. And then everybody says, God is good. And so I think this is a beautiful Shepherd of the Week moment. And you may be wondering who I'm trying to highlight in this. And I think I'm going to highlight his daughter. The amount of courage it takes to act on that, in the end, they still have the decision. She still has the decision, like, is God telling me to play this guitar for him? Is God not telling me to play this guitar for him? But she acted on the love of God, and her father felt it, and her father was healed, and it was a really beautiful, beautiful experience. If you ever get the chance to go watch that, please go pull it up. It's very moving. But yeah, so
Evan,
Jamie
am I able
Foxx's
to
daughter.
link this video in the description?
Yeah, you can. You can copy the link.
I will hopefully remember to do that, ladies and gentlemen, if you have interest in going to watch this video.
I also think, I think one of the coolest, not taking away from that, obviously that's a pretty cool moment, but one of the cooler things is so often the entertainment industry, movies, shows, media, music is so secular. And so it was really cool to hear Jamie Foxx say God is good and people to respond. That was pretty cool. It was pretty awesome experience. Yeah, aside from obviously, his direct quote is, "I knew God was in that guitar." So a pretty cool experience. And as a musician with two guitars hanging right behind you, I'm sure you can kind of talk about, and your recent visit to Italy, I'm sure you can talk about, God being in music a lot and God being just present in that music. And I know that I've felt that in my life, and just it's such a good vehicle, such a important vehicle for emotion and beauty and grace. So really,
Yeah,
really,
totally.
really cool story.
I'm getting like goosebumps just even hearing about it's so cool to see the celebrities respond in Hollywood and everything, because everybody most of the people in the room responded to God is good, and everybody knew exactly what it was. So the media in the world may try to push everything that's pushed out to us, everything that's fed to us is all the evil that we can see in the world, right? But what actually isn't fed to us is all the goodness. And so we may not see it, but it is out there. And there are certain places that do push it, but the general consensus is trying to disguise that. The devil's trying to disguise that goodness in the world by feeding us evil. But yeah, music. Oh, it's such a vehicle of grace that God has given the world. It's one of the, I think it's connected to beauty, one of the transcendentals, which we will cover back later on when we get back around to it. But again, music has that ability to strike something inside of you that just longs for God. It longs for it longs for union with Him. It longs for love with Him. And so when you listen to something, when you listen to a song, when you encounter something beautiful in the world and nature and just day-to-day life, you feel struck by something that feels empty, right? But you're longing for that emptiness. And I think music helps me feel that longing, which is one of the reasons why I love it so much. And whenever I talk about a song, I dive into it so fast. And Azario can testify to this. Poor guy has listened to probably about thousands of music rants about songs with me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guitar riff is so cool. And I'm like, don't you just feel like engaged right now? And he's like, yeah, I have no clue what you're talking about. But yeah, Nazario sat through a ton of that. But I love musical as a vehicle of grace.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize everything that music could do for you until I met Cole. I don't know if there's anything specific to myself that Cole has realized like this, but music has been a great avenue for Cole to introduce me to a lot of different things. And I will say that Cole has introduced me to a lot of different music that I never would have listened to. And I think one thing that I know we talked about listening to Christian music a while ago, Cole, but it's also the fact that you can find God in working through different types of music, and He can speak to you through different types of music, whether that person that was writing the music intended it or not. God can still speak to you through these different lyrics, and just the beauty of music, as Cole has really opened up for me in a very beautiful way, and it also has led to me and Caitlin having a better connection through music, which I didn't expect to happen either, Cole. So credit to you, sir, and for that. So
I love that you bring that up too about you can find God in a lot of the music that we've created, and it doesn't have to specifically say God. The greatest love songs in the world, 99% of the time, if it doesn't list the name of a person off, you can pray with it. It is about a relationship with somebody you love, and that relationship can be it is God as well. And so every time somebody writes a love song, like 1,000 years, think of 1,000 years and think about that song directed towards God, and it really opens up your mind and your view of the whole world. And on the podcast, we've covered plenty of songs. We covered some country music that we've referred to. I don't even which one was the last one we did.
I remember. I believe Most People Are Good by Luke
Good.
Bryan was
Yep.
one of them. So
There's one, and I could totally say related toward God. We have folk music that's come up on here. Need to Breathe, who is more of a Christian band. We've had all these different genres, and it shows that the opportunities are infinite and boundless, right? And music is, again, it's a reflection of what we're feeling. We're going back to the quote. It's it's easy right here. It's a reflection of what you're feeling, and you're redirecting that feeling towards somebody else. And so singer-songwriters are taking in what God is allowing them to write on a page and guiding them to write on a page and reflecting it out to the rest of the world. And that's how we get to be absolutely and utterly destroyed by the lyrics and beauty in song. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you talked about, Cole, I was going to do that, but you beat me to it about bringing it back to the quote and being able to redirect it. And this could be as practical as Cole talked about with a love song, just redirecting those lyrics to God in prayer. It can be when you hear a song that doesn't have good lyrics and you can see and hear the brokenness of the person, redirecting that into prayer for that person. I know that one works for me, is especially when you see the brokenness of someone's love, whether it's heartbreak, whether it's how they think love should be handled, and to just be able to pray about that for them, and to just be able to open that up to God as we talked about. So just so many different things that you can do with music. I didn't expect music to come up in this, but yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to get into our final thoughts for this episode. Evan, would you like to kick it off with your final thoughts, sir?
I think just reflect and reflect, I think is kind of what we touched on this whole episode, right? Reflect and reflect. Be a reflector, but also be a reflector. Reflect on what's inside, and then reflect the love of Christ. And as much as you begin to reflect that love, then your interior reflection will begin to become more like him. You wouldn't happen to be wearing the right search shirt for this, but the quote goes, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we become what we love. I think, in paraphrase, we become what we love. So as we continue to love Christ, we continue to become closer and closer to him.
Cole Bissett.
Yeah. Learn how to reflect. Your heart is a window open to the infinite. We had a quote from Gavin a while back, which was, you got to burn through the brush to make room through the trees. This time I'm going to reference a song, and I encourage you all to listen to it. And it's about his inner battle with faith and everything, but how his arms are open for God's grace, right? The first way to be able to reflect something is to not block the sun. Open your arms, allow God to shine that light on your heart, and go to confession. Keep your windows clean. Let God wipe your windows. Allow God to wipe your windows, and allow that reflection to hit your heart. And again, it is so important to be able to reflect God's grace onto other people. It doesn't. Again, we talked about the power of compliments a couple times on this episode, but just being a light in somebody's day can change it drastically. So that's my final little tidbits on that.
Yeah, so we've touched on being open, making sure you are in that reflective state to receive, and then let it flow to the rest of the world and everyone that you meet. And if we look back at the lives of a lot of the saints, we see brokenness in some of them, and all of them, of course, and we see some real failures in parts of their lives. But what changes? As Cole's phone goes out for the second time. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. If you're on audio, you have no idea what's going on, but Cole's phone he's back. Welcome back, Cole. And we see these saints. What happens? What changes their lives? It's being open. But they'll still have these moments of mistakes, these moments of failing. But one thing that is really, this specifically, that has really, as Evan, you do your Marian consecration, has really directed me towards our Mother Mary, is the ability to be open. And we see it from the very, very beginning of Luke's gospel. Mary says, when the angel comes to her, behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. May it be done to me according to your word. And so we talk about these incredible saints that we have, these inspirations that we have, and they're all amazing and they're all incredible. But in terms of humans other than Jesus, of course, we can look to Mary as the most perfect example of surrender outside of Jesus, of course. and just what she did, and how she opened herself to the Lord completely. And whether it was literally opening her body, opening her womb to the Holy Spirit, to have Jesus incarnate in her womb, and having to be the mother of the Lord, and going through birth and then raising the Lord, but then having to go through just, what is that? Did Cole just play a sound? Hello?
This is music.
Oh. And
That was in the background.
yeah, you're good. And just having to go through her life knowing what was going to happen to her son, but always having to submit herself to the will of the Father. And so I just invite all of you to come to a deeper appreciation for Mary and what she did during her earthly life and her example, and to be able to go to her, to ask her to help you with that, to be able to help you to be open to the Lord. Mary always, throughout her life, and any instance of her pretty much in the Bible, is her wanting to lead the children of God to her son, Jesus. And she is in heaven doing that as we speak, with her prayers, with her petitions to her son. She just wants her children to come to know her son. And so we can learn from her, we can pray to her, and we need to become the perfect bride that Mary was, and opening herself completely. We ourselves, as the bride of Christ, need to learn to open ourselves. And for women, obviously, this makes sense because they are brides as females. For men, this could be a little bit different. I'm going to steal an analogy from Christopher West. If you don't like thinking about being a bride as much, think about being a wide receiver. And Jesus is the quarterback. You must get yourself open for Jesus to be able to throw you the rock, throw you the graces. So think about it that way, if that helps you better. But as always, just be open to the Lord. It can do so many things. If we are just open, Jesus will do it all. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 58 of the Lost Sheep Podcast. We thank you all for watching. Tune in next week. And as always, God bless.